Good afternoon, everybody. Bonjour à tous. Je suis ravie d'être ici aujourd'hui. Et je voulais dire un grand merci à Salon Virtuality Paris pour me permettre de partager ma recherche avec vous aujourd'hui. So I'm very glad to be here today to be able to share my PhD research that I have been doing at the Technical University of Denmark. So I would like to address the issue of complexity. We are living in a world that is increasing every day in complexity, and at the same time the demand for simplicity is increasing at the same time. We are living in an era of paradox. So simplicity is the challenge for tomorrow. So in a world that is increasing in complexity, how can we take advantage of the big pool of data that is increasing every day via sensor devices, via databases? How can we take advantage of this pool of data that is there? How can we share it in meaningful manners, in engaging and compelling manners to make thrive audiences, and also keep intelligent conversations around the table with fact-based storytelling? In order to do so, we need to take a systemics approach. With this, what I mean is to take a holistic view that encompasses both humans and technology. So engineering systems design is one of the disciplines dealing with complexity today. So we deal with complexity in order to be able to ask the right questions. To ask the right questions in order to address the challenges that are coming tomorrow and be able to advise policymakers, institutions, and companies on how to address this ever-increasing complexity. So I'm a PhD researcher at Engineering Systems Design Group in the Technical University of Denmark. And the particular look that I take towards complexity is through visuals. Through looking at visuals and how does visual supports enable to offshore this complexity, and specifically through immersive presentations. Now let's take an example. So here we have a transportation case that could be. So what is transportation? It's basically people, so humans on cars, technology. Now, we have them in roads, which is basically the car going from point A to point B in a geographical location. So that is one part. Then we have also an IT infrastructure system around all these roads, taking into account sensors, radars also. And in 5 years, we're going to have artificial intelligence incorporated in all of that. So the question now is how to address this complexity that is increasing every day. And what interests me particularly, and what I'm going to talk to you about, is how to communicate it to large audiences, to people who are not experts about data, how to address information in fact-based and compelling manners in order that they also understand what is going on. Now, Scott Berinato, which is one of the editors of the Harvard Business Review, already sees this gap in communication of data between data science departments and executives. So between the facts and the decisions, there's already a gap in communication. How can we address that? Right? So he tells that through storytelling, through fact-based stories, we can engage decision makers and non-specialized audiences with data-based facts. right? So now, here what I will tell you specifically about is fact-based storytelling with immersive technologies, virtual reality, augmented reality, and also tangible user interfaces through immersive presentations. Now, why immersive? Immersion is this psychological state of being enveloped by a stream of stimuli and experience. And what are the properties? So one of them is multisensory display of information. In other words, instead of being able to see only the information and perceive them visually, I can also hear, but what interests me mostly is I can also touch through haptics. So haptics is this sense of touch that we can also have through VR, AR, and also through tangible user interfaces. And by touching information, this can give you a much more intuitive feeling about it. We're going to have a look at that later on. And another property is engagement. Engagement with the content presented. If the content relates to a decision you need to take, it will engage you much more on that decision. That is backed up by some research and also engagement with the content, but engagement with the people you're sharing the experience with. So these are two key components about immersiveness and immersive technologies. Now let me share with you the Virtuality Continuum. And it's been done 25 years ago. I consider it great because of its simplicity. We have on one side the real environment, at the other the virtual one. And in between, we have all mixed reality terms. And we can classify mixed reality technologies in all this continuum. Tangible user interfaces, which basically are devices that you can touch, and through their changes, they show the information. Virtual reality, you already know what it is. You're surrounded by a stream of experiences. Augmented reality overlays a virtual stimulus on top of reality, and augmented virtuality, which is basically the opposite of augmented reality. It gives real-world information to the digital world. In other words, a GPS is augmented virtuality, which means that I'm embedding information of the real world in the virtual world. Now, we are going to address complexity through immersive technologies and data visualization, and how to build this bridge between those two through immersive presentations. Now, let's check again the Virtuality Continuum, merging the Virtuality Continuum and data visualization. We have mixed reality in between, and let's check a first example of tangible user interface. So what you're going to see here is basically an example developed this year at MIT. And it's a tangible user interface with variable force feedback in real time. That means that at the same time, you will see that the user is pressing the pins. At the same time it's pressing the pins, you can see how the different layers change in intensity. So the unique material properties of each layer can be touched, and these displays seismic data. So now, why would I want to touch this information, and why is that useful for? So usually geoscientists visualize this information through section cuts of visualized data. So they are experts, they're used to deal with that. Now, how about if you have a project with public policies, with politicians, and they need to take decisions of the land, and they need to address those? How can they get an intuitive understanding of what's going on? This is one of the options that you have through this type of immersive presentations. This can be very useful for oil and gas industries, for example. So this is one case of accessibility of complex information through multisensory input. We're talking here about haptic devices. Now let's check this example of the Japanese company MOL. So it's a transportation company, and this company has merged both augmented reality and augmented virtuality in a visualization to present data on their ships. So as you can see here, there's data in real time from the ship's radar that is overlaid to the deck of the ship. So this is extremely useful to foster operational decision-making when the ship is sailing, and also for heavy and narrow trafficked waters. So this is a clear example of how real-time data overlaid to the real world can support decisions. And this is one case of immersive presentations of information that can support decisions operationally. Now let's check virtual reality. And here I'm going to show you a specialized case. This is for data analysts. We have here an application which is Power BI, a business analytics tool. So in some cases, you have multi-layer data, and you're seeing it on a 2D screen. So how can you see a multidimensional data set in a two-dimensional screen? People are used to seeing that because simply the computer creates this fake illusion of depth. However, when you see it three-dimensionally, what happens is that you perceive this spatial understanding between data points. And so this is multidimensional data sets, and it's intended for data experts. So what we have seen until now? We have here the continuum, which is complete, and this clear bridge between immersive technologies and data visualization. So it can serve to add context to the data, to present data in an intuitive manner, and also to add spatial understanding in multidimensional data sets. Now let's check this case. So we have here what we did in the context of my research at DTU. We wanted to see, okay, this is what all these immersive visualizations in presentation settings have given us. However, what happens in a business meeting when we put an immersive visualization in the table? How does this change the relationship between humans? Let's check the case of a business presentation. So with our partner, Versabi, which is a company that develops virtual and augmented reality solutions for businesses based in Copenhagen, we built what you can see here, this visualization. So this visualization is basically what we call valuation data from a financial company. So business consultants are used to present this type of information to their client. So how about if we present this information in a business meeting? So this is the context of what we did here. And that was the case. So we were 5 and 4 data analysts. So 2 data analysts, 1 executive, and 1 manager. One of them was wearing HoloLens. It's HoloLens 1. The experience was built with this technology. And in the middle of the table, there was this visualization. So how does this affect the relationships between the participants, and how does this change the effect of the content you're visualizing? These were some of the results that we got. So first of all, it fosters presence and engagement. So it fosters this engagement that you're having with the information that you're sharing. And that changes the experience with the data set and the information that you're showing. So that's creates a total different relationship with the content that you're presenting. And sometimes you may be interested in creating this type of presentations to your clients. And another side, much more practical, you also have a simultaneous perception of data and participants. What does it mean? That in the same field of view, I have the participant, I have my colleague or my client, and the data. I don't have to look at the PowerPoint, which may be at the side, or at the document, which may be down. So I have everything on the same field of view. On another note, accessibility of information to non-data experts, which means it makes it easier for them to understand. And that's a very key and important point that we saw also with the tangible user interface example. Another point is that also, while you present, you can build up your narrative according to the data that you show. So what I mean is that if at the moment I'm presenting, the elements are building up as I speak, I can direct the focus of attention of my clients, right? And these will avoid having cases in which, for example, you have a document with 30 numbers, and you're talking about number A, but your client is looking at number C, number D, number E, you don't know. So at least you can have this same focus of attention. Now, there is also a dark side to that. So what are the risks? And as a researcher, I need to talk to you about these risks, which usually companies don't tell. The hardware is invasive, which means that when I have a head-mounted display on my head, my client has it also. This changes the relationship between us. This alienates the meeting, right? So we need to take into account that. And also in business contexts where the decisions are very serious or the context is very serious, it can take out some seriousness about the meeting because it's funny. So you need to take into account what context are you using that in. And another note, it also needs additional time. Additional time for training at the beginning of the session if you want your users to interact with it, and also for using the technology during the meeting, because especially novel users take more time. So this needs to be taken into account. Also, the extra cost of the hardware and the software. And finally, it can also present distractions from the content presented. Because immersive presentations are so novel yet today, it can distract from the content. And that is something you don't want, right? So these are the downsides. Now, what we need to do is to properly weight both the advantages and the disadvantages and evaluate on a one-on-one basis what makes sense for the case that you're looking at and profit for your organization. So this is at the stage of research today. There are already solutions out there in the market which are commercial. However, these will be coming up more and more in the coming years. So, as a conclusion, this is not about technology push. This is about how to address complexity in a more human manner, in a more understandable way, creating this bridge between immersive technologies and data visualization through immersive presentations that convey fact-based storytelling that is accessible, engaging, and also memorable. And now if we go back to the beginning and we look at simplicity being the challenge of tomorrow, we crave for this simplicity. So I just tell you to be open to this idea of immersive presentations, because although they may seem intimidating in some use cases still today, this is being researched. At the moment there is a lot going on in data visualization, in immersive environments, and this is really coming more and more. So it's a way to address information in a compelling, engaging, and more understandable way. In other words, in a more simple manner. So I can just encourage you to take action and to experience immersive presentations together. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.